She's had 4 dead husbands. What if I don't actually like mixed media? Hey friends, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby. Today we're going to be starting on a very specific kind of thriller reading vlog, and I thought it would be fun to do a reading vlog like this that's reading thrillers that involve some kind of mixed media elements. Because if you missed it, last month I did a book shopping vlog where a few of the books that I actually picked up during that book shopping vlog included some mixed media elements, and I was trying to figure out a way to include them in content, and somebody actually let me know. They were like, oh, both of those books that you picked up actually do have mixed media elements, so I thought it would be cool to include these books in a vlog all together. If you're wondering what exactly is mixed media, or like what does that mean, I actually looked up the definition because I was curious myself to see what it would say, and it says mixed media books are told in different formats like diary entries, verse, interviews, blog posts, etc. And so, you know, I've always thought to myself, like, I really do think that I like a lot of books that have mixed media. I'll show you some examples towards the end of this video for some thrillers that I've read in the past that have mixed media that I've really loved, but I do think the mixed media in general, it usually really does work for me. I think it makes for such a more immersive reading experience sometimes and makes it feel more real. So in this vlog, I end up reading 3-ish books, and I say ish because things didn't exactly go to plan, but the first book that I'm going to be reading for this video is Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter, and this one is entirely told in mixed media. Like, every single thing about this is told in an unconventional way. This one is nothing but, you know, interviews and like screenplay and like news articles and like different pictures, different things like that. It's completely mixed media. One of the other books I picked up was True Crime Story by Joseph Knox, and this is another one that is completely mixed media. Like, almost all of it is told in like an interview format kind of style. There also are like some pictures and different things included in this one as well. And then I was looking through my bookshelves because one of the books that I tried to read for this video that you didn't actually end up seeing at all in this video was the book Never Lie by Frieda McFadden. I don't know why, for some reason I thought that that book had mixed media, but then I got over an hour into the audiobook before I realized that there is actually no mixed media elements in this book, at least not as far as I can tell from the audiobook. I also couldn't really stand the voice of this female narrator on this audiobook. Like, it just did not work for me at all, so I actually ended up DNFing this one pretty early on anyways. So then I was flipping through some of the books that I have on my own TBR trying to figure out which other books I could potentially read for this, and then I realized that The Heiress by Hawkins actually does have some mixed media in this as well. After flipping through this book, I realized that there's a lot of different news articles in this. There's what looks like diary entries from like a specific character, and there's a lot of like online chat forum looking kind of things. So this one would definitely qualify for mixed media, I think. And so these are the 3 books that I'm going to be reading for this vlog. I mean, this vlog was a little bit of a hot mess, as my vlogs typically are, because I did have one of these that I kind of DNF'd like almost immediately, but I did find some things that I enjoyed in this video. So before we jump into the chaos of today's reading vlog, I just wanted to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, which is HelloFresh. Dive into HelloFresh's biggest menu yet with over 45 weekly recipes to choose from. You can make delicious food a priority for yourself this spring by getting these delicious meals delivered right to your door. You just get to choose your meals every week, select a delivery date that works for you, and yes, their schedule is flexible, so like you can skip a week if you're not going to be in town. It's very convenient to use the HelloFresh app. Something that I love is that with these meals, they are giving you the exact amount of ingredients that you need to make every meal, so you're not going to have as much food waste as you typically would sometimes when you're just trying to make food on your own. I love that with HelloFresh, you can make restaurant quality meals in your home without paying the high cost of takeout. And when you sign up today, you'll unlock free dessert for life. And let me tell you, I've tried a few of their dessert items now. Their strawberry cheesecake one that they recently sent me, oh my gosh, I've been obsessed with it. I'd be lying if I said I haven't been thinking about that every single night. And this time, one of the meals that I ended up making with my sister was the Southwest beef cavatappi. This one has always been one of my favorite meals from HelloFresh because the seasoning and the flavor on these noodles is so good, and the beef really complements it so well. Like, it is definitely one of my favorite kind of noodle type of dishes from HelloFresh. It's always been a top favorite of mine. I'm not the best cook personally, but I love that they make it so easy with like the 6 steps on the back with the photos. It just really helps me feel like I'm learning a lot about cooking every time that I cook with HelloFresh. And I always discover some new favorite recipes of all time that I would have never personally thought of on my own because I'm just not that creative when it comes to like cooking in the kitchen. So you can go to HelloFresh.com and use my code gabbyreads for free dessert for life. And that is 1 dessert item per box while your subscription is active. And that's code gabbyreads at HelloFresh.com for free dessert for life. I know for somebody like me that has a really big sweet tooth, the sound of free dessert for life just really boosts my mood. You know, like that's a serotonin boost when I hear that. So definitely be sure to take advantage of that deal while it's still there. And thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. And now let's cut to the reading vlog. how's it going? It's about 8 o'clock at night. The sun is literally just starting to go down. There's a freaking rainbow outside of my window right now. That is very exciting, but I wanted to let you know that I have started on Murder in the Family. I just got to page 130. I am so sad to say this. Like, I'm really sad to start the video this way. I didn't want to come in here with like negative energy right away, but I think I'm gonna DNF this book after 130 pages. I was really bored at the start of this book, but I was trying to push through and I was trying to like give it a minute to pick up, but there is something about the mixed media format of this book specifically that's making it very difficult for me to get into for some reason. I think the idea of it is kind of cool, you know, because we're following these characters who are going to be on this show called Infamous, and it's kind of like a true crime show that's like they, you know, take on these unsolved cases and like try to find the truth about what really happened. And so this particular murder that we're following in this book it took place in December 2003. It was this guy named Luke Ryder, and he was like the stepfather of this very acclaimed filmmaker whose name is Guy Howard. And so 20 years later, this kid, Guy Howard, decides that he wants to like try to solve the case because nobody was ever arrested for the murder of his stepfather, and he wants to like find out the truth once and for all. And so this show, Infamous, is going to be covering this guy's case. And this entire book is very told in like mixed media. Like, there's nothing conventional about the storytelling in this. Every single chapter in this book is like news articles about the show, and then like you get these little moments where it's like all the people who are going to be on the show, you get to like read a little bit about their career and what they've done so far. It's also told through like text messages of like people who are on the cast of the show. There's emails, there's voice memos, there's even like this, which is like basically just the screenplay of the TV show. Like, you're basically reading like, oh, the lights fade in and then this pops up on the screen and then this fades out. Like, it's literally so mixed media. Like, this book could not be more mixed media. But for some reason, I don't know if it's necessarily like the format that's not working for me. I mean, I do love mixed media, I guess, more when it's like mixed with conventional storytelling, because with just having like just the articles and just the screenplay and like nothing else, I just don't feel very grounded in the story. This mystery is just not that interesting. Like, I don't know, it's like, okay, this guy died, his whole family was at the house, but nobody saw the killer. Like, I don't know, it's just not that fascinating. Like, there's nothing about this book that is gripping me in the first 130 pages, at least for me personally. And like, also, this book is so long. I mean, it's like over 460 pages, and I'm like, for what? I mean, what is cool is that the audiobook is actually only 9 hours long because, you know, since there is so much mixed media on the pages, I'm assuming that it is actually a quick read for how long the book actually is. But at the same time, like, I just don't care enough to want to read this. Like, I don't want to read this. Like, the idea of trying to pick up this book again tomorrow and try to read more of this is making me feel like I'm in a reading slump. Like, I don't want to read it. Like, I just don't care enough. And I feel like, honestly, in a thriller like this, by 130 pages in, I should be invested. That is plenty of time for a thriller to grip me. And so that's why I'm concerned. Like, if it hasn't gripped me yet, then like that's concerning. Like, why am I 130 pages in and I do not care? So it is unfortunate, but I am going to go ahead and DNF this book because it's just not for me, and I have to recognize that. And I mean, of course, I'm hoping with this video that I can find a mixed media thriller that actually really works for me, because now after reading this, I'm scared. I'm like, wait, what if I don't actually like mixed media? That would be a bummer. I can think of a number of books though that have mixed media that I have enjoyed. So I think this one was just a dud for me personally. But anyways, we are going to be on to the next thing. Hopefully the next book is a little bit more enjoyable for me. I think tomorrow morning I would love to like go out to a coffee shop somewhere and start reading that book in a coffee shop. That just sounds like the perfect thing that I need to kick off my week tomorrow, you know? how's it going? I just wanted to update you because I have started reading true crime story. I was originally planning to like go out to a coffee shop today and do some reading, but then this morning when I woke up, I was like, you know what? It's been so long since I've came down to Bellingham and gotten an acai bowl. So I decided to do that this morning instead. And then I just came down to like the little water area that's over here. And I just decided to take a little bit of a walk while I started listening to this on audio. And it was really nice. Like, it's actually so nice out today. It's been really like gloomy and rainy for the last like, I don't know, 5 or 6 days straight. So like to have a nice sunny day, I was like, I really need to like take advantage of this and get out. A true crime story is going very well so far. I am very intrigued. And this one definitely has the mixed media elements, so much to the point where it's kind of interesting because this author himself, like Joseph Knox, he's almost like a part of the story in a way, which like doesn't fully make sense to me, but I'm very fascinated by this because there's like a publisher's note at the beginning of the book where Joseph Knox kind of like explains his connection to the story, but he's saying like, there have been gross misinterpretations of my character and threats made against my family. These threats are completely out of line. Just so confused at the beginning of this book if this is like a genuine note from the author or if this is like a bit because he's supposed to be like part of the story. This entire book so far has been about this true crime case. There's this woman named Evelyn Mitchell, and she's gonna be like finding out the truth about this case that happened 7 years ago, but she's also reaching out to Joseph Knox, who's like a true crime writer, and she's asking for his help. So like in the story, we get the emails between Evelyn and then like Joseph Knox. So I'm like, what? Because like he's like the author of this book, obviously, but he's also like a character in his own story. So it's like kind of weird because it makes it feel true, even though I don't think this is true. Like this is a fictional book. But it's like very interesting because the fact that the author himself is like a character in this as a true crime writer makes it feel more real. So in this story, we're following this story is about this young girl named Zoe Nolan, and she disappeared 7 years ago. She was a student at Manchester University, and she'd only been living in her apartment for 3 months when she disappeared at 19 years old, and nobody ever saw her again. And so in this story, we're following the character Evelyn Mitchell as she's like interviewing a lot of Zoe's friends. She's interviewing her twin sister, she's interviewing her parents, and she's trying to like uncover the truth of like what really happened to Zoe that night. And so far it's been interesting. Like, I don't know, I'm definitely fascinated by this because I love like this audiobook is a full cast audiobook, and it's really cool because a lot of this story is told in like interview format where you're just getting like the name of the character and then they do their little talking bit. In between the interviews, we do get the emails back and forth between like Joseph Knox and this woman Evelyn. And I love on the audiobook because when you're reading those emailing moments, the audiobook has this like typewriter sound like tick, 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 that it's in the background. Like, oh my god, it's straight up ASMR. I really enjoy it because it helps me like when I'm not actually looking at the physical book, like when I was walking around the lake over here, it helps me like remember, oh, like this scene is emails back and forth. Like it helps me differentiate the two. I also love like during the interviews, there's this like staticky sound in the background that makes it sound like an old school like tape that's being played or something. I really love the production on this audiobook has been fantastic so far. I love that it's full cast, so like every single one of her friends has like a different voice, so it's not too confusing to follow along. And I don't know, I'm definitely invested in this story so far. Like I want to know like what the heck happened to Zoe. I feel like this book is also, even though I'm only 50 pages in, I feel like this book is doing a really good job at building this like very intriguing relationship that Zoe had with her sister Kimberly. It seems like Zoe was like the type of sister that was just like a perfect, you know, like straight A student and like always excelling at every single thing that she does. And it seems like Kimberly had a little bit of resentment towards her for those things. We also read about right away at the beginning, there was this incident where Kimberly actually got kidnapped like a few weeks before Zoe went missing. And so like, I don't know if that kidnapping was like connected to, you know, what happened to Zoe or not, but it was interesting because she was like saying how it was so traumatic for her to go through something like that. And then of course, right after that, her sister ended up going missing. So like, it's a very interesting setup so far. I am definitely here for the vibes. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. I decided to come down here to the coffee shop anyways, because the coffee shop is just around the corner from like this little lake area that I've been chilling at. And so I was like, I mean, I might as well, right? Just like get a chai latte and sit in the coffee shop and read like I actually plan to. So I think I'm gonna do that. Hopefully there's a table for me to sit down because it seems like it might be crowded today. though it is much later in the night, the day really just got away from me. I was pretty much reading this book up until I got home, and then once I got home, I took a shower and washed my hair, and then I was just sitting here playing guitar for like hours because I'm trying to learn all the new like Tortured Poets Department songs on guitar because I just think it's so much fun. And so I was practicing guitar for hours, and now like my fingers really hurt. Like, you know when you haven't played guitar in like a minute, or at least you haven't played guitar like for that long of a period of time, and then it really starts to like hurt your fingers all over again? Like, that's how I'm feeling. Oh my gosh, it's been pouring rain tonight, just like dumping buckets. It's like the best ambiance outside right now. But I did want to let you know that I have still been reading True Crime Story. I'm now 174 pages into it, and on the audiobook I'm about 48% of the way through, so I'm like about halfway. At this point where I'm at in the book, we're starting to learn a little bit more information about what actually happened on the night that she went missing, at least like in terms of like what her friends were doing and what they were thinking and what was going on. And I don't know, like I'm intrigued, I'm invested. Like there was something that happened on the night that she went missing that I was like, oh gosh, like that's terrible for her. And like I don't really know what direction this story could be heading in, but so far I'm really liking it, and I'm really liking the mixed media elements of this too. I just think it makes it even more interesting. I love the way that these characters, like after we get a chapter, we'll see these characters like emailing each other being like, oh, did you fact check this? And like, oh, how did you feel about this person's interview? Like, do you think that they were being honest? It's just kind of cool. It feels like we're getting like the inside scoop or like the behind the scenes of the making of like a documentary or something. I also really love too on the different parts of this book, the way that it gets divided like this with these really cool pictures. Like, I don't know, I think that looks so cool. I love too how they said that him and his girlfriend had dressed up as Ghostface and then as Drew Barrymore, you know, for Halloween. And I love how like they included a picture of it. I just think it makes it feel so much more real. Things are going well about halfway through. I think I am gonna call it a night tonight though, because I am just feeling so exhausted today. I haven't been sleeping very well like these last few nights, so I've been getting tired really early. It's not even 10 o'clock at night right now, and I am so tired to the point where like I could probably sleep soon, which is crazy because I'm usually the kind of person that stays up until at least like 1 in the morning every single night. But I've just been so tired these last couple of days, so I think I'm gonna call it a night early, try to get some sleep, and then I think I am going to try and finish this one up tomorrow. Hello, it is the next afternoon. Last night I slept really well to the point where when I woke up this morning, I was like, I feel so energized. I'm gonna go to the gym. And so I went to the gym this morning. I was picking up a few things for errands. I got some groceries and I made a really great breakfast. And then I've just been laying here all this afternoon finishing up the rest of True Crime Story. I don't know how I feel about this. My initial gut reaction to the ending is that I feel like the ending was a little bit underwhelming, and I feel like it didn't really solve some of the things that I'm still curious about. Like, I feel like one of the biggest mysteries of this book remains unsolved, and I'm kind of like, why is that? And I'm wondering, like, is that the intent with this book? Like, is it supposed to feel like one of those, you know, like true crime documentaries that like you never fully know the truth about what happened kind of thing? Because I don't know, I'm feeling like the ending was a little bit unsatisfying for me. I also think with like the second half of this book, I do think some of it started to feel like it was dragging for me, and I was finding it a little bit more difficult to like connect with the characters. Because for me, I feel like the only character that I was really connecting with and that I feel like we really got to know is the sister Kimberly, because I feel like she had a really interesting story in terms of like what her relationship was with Zoe and how that was before she went missing. But I feel like the rest of the characters, I still feel like I really don't know them that well. And like maybe that's the point, but I think also because the writing style is how it is, where it's just like told in interview formats like this, I feel like it was almost told in a way that felt very distant from these characters, so I feel like I don't actually know them that well. Also, just like, as cool as it is, you know, that this author did this thing where he was like self-inserting himself into the book, I just don't know how I feel about like authors doing that. I don't know, maybe other people just like really love that, but I just find it kind of weird and confusing. It kind of almost reminds me of that book, you know, Chasing the Boogeyman or whatever that one was called, where like the author like self-inserts himself into something that's fictional. Because the author is like inserting himself into the story, it makes it feel more real and like it's nonfiction. And I know that this book is doing the same thing, because this one is saying it's like blurring the lines between fiction and nonfiction, because, you know, like this author is inserting himself into the story like he was one of the true crime investigators working on this case. He was, you know, exchanging emails with this other woman who was working on the case, and like he does have connections to these characters in this book too. So it was kind of confusing, and I was just like, what is the reason for this? Like, is it just to make it feel even more real? Because I mean, if that was the reason, then like it was working, you know, because I kept thinking, is this based off a true story? Like, I kept trying to look it up, and it's not. Like, it's all completely fiction, but like because the author was like self-inserting so much, it made it feel more real, which I guess is kind of a cool thing. I just don't know if it's something that I personally like when it comes to like mystery thriller books. There were a few things towards the end that I found surprising and that I was like, oh my gosh, like that is juicy. Like, there was a lot of things happening in this book that I thought were very interesting, but I also still just feel very underwhelmed by the ending of this one. So like, I don't know how I want to rate this. I feel like it's probably going to be somewhere around like a 3.5 stars for me. It was feeling like a 4-star for like most of the book, and then in the second half it really started to feel more like a 3-star, but then there were some things at the ending that I was kind of surprised by, but I still feel very unsatisfied by the ending of this book because I just wanted more answers. So I feel like a 3.5 stars feels right for me, but I feel like over time I might even drop it down to like a 3-star. I don't know. This is definitely still one that I think I would recommend because it's such a unique reading experience. I read thrillers a lot, okay? Like, I read a lot of freaking thrillers, and I can honestly say I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this, which is honestly really impressive to do these days. Like, I think it's really impressive to have a thriller that feels so unique and so unlike anything that I've ever read before, so I think that's a huge compliment towards this book. But I do think I'm one of those people where like I can see why some of my friends are like obsessed with this and why people are saying it's like really incredible. I just don't know if it was exactly like my particular favorite kind of thriller. Okay, so last night we ended up making this absolutely delicious dinner. Oh my gosh, it was like chicken. It had this like Italian seasoning on it, and it had mozzarella on top. And then we also did this like veggies sauteed on the side kind of thing with carrots and asparagus and zucchini. And my sister made these mashed potatoes that were like absolutely life-changing. Like, that shit was so good. But anyways, it's the next morning. I just made a quick breakfast, and I think I'm going to go ahead and get started on the heiress. I think while I start listening to this on audio this morning, I'm going to make some banana bread because my family has this like recipe that's been in our family for years, and it's really cool because this banana bread recipe doesn't require any eggs, because, you know, eggs were very expensive during the Great Depression, and so this recipe does not require any eggs, and it's one of my favorite family recipes. Like, it's literally the best. I think one of the best tips for making homemade banana bread is to let the bananas get to the point where they're literally like so brown. You put them in the freezer, and then the night before you're gonna make them, you just like leave them out on the counter or like leave them in a bowl and let them defrost. It just really adds to the moistness of the banana bread. I know people don't like that word, I'm sorry, but it really does make the bread so much more moist when the bananas are like this. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna get started on the audiobook for this one while I make my little banana bread. Ooh. today. Hi, it's a little bit over an hour later. I just changed. My banana bread is done. It turned out so freaking good. And I wanted to update because I'm already 100 pages into the Heiress. And so far, this has been really interesting. Like, I don't know, I'm really loving the vibes of this so far. I really like that in this book, we are getting 3 different perspectives, kind of, and then we also do get a lot of the mixed media elements where there's like news articles and emails and different things like that in between the chapters. But the main story that we're following is about this character named Ruby, and she is either, I don't know if she's the mother or the grandma of this guy named Cam, who's also like one of the main protagonists that we're following. We're following Cam and then his wife named Jules, and we get all 3 of those perspectives, but it's cool because we do get Ruby's perspective in like these flashback chapters, and her chapters, they say from the desk of Ruby, so it feels like you're reading something that was like a diary entry or something. And you know, Ruby's perspective, it says from the desk of Ruby, so it kind of feels like you're reading like a diary entry or something, which just adds to like the mixed media element of this story. But I really do like the setup of this book because what happens at the beginning is that Ruby actually dies, but then it says in the aftermath of her death, oh, it does say her adopted son Camden wants little to do with the house or the money because he is now, you know, happily living his life with his wife Jules in Colorado. Like, they have a completely different life, and you know, his life back in North Carolina is just in the rear view mirror. You know, like, he doesn't want to think about it anymore because his family, it was just like not a good environment for him. But now it says 10 years later his uncle's death pulls them back to Ashby House, which Ashby House is, you know, this house that was in North Carolina where his family was from. It's really interesting though because this woman Ruby, that was like his adopted mother, she has such an interesting history to her character. I mean, it says like she was not only North Carolina's richest woman, but she's also its most notorious because she was the victim of a famous kidnapping as a child and a widow 4 times over. Like, she's had 4 dead husbands. Dude, this is giving me such Evelyn Hugo vibes. Like, you have no idea. I feel like this feels like Evelyn Hugo to me if it was like a thriller instead of like a romantic historical fiction kind of book. This woman Ruby is definitely giving me Evelyn Hugo vibes, especially like I love the narration on the audiobook in the chapters that are like from the desk of Ruby, because then like you get Ruby's perspective about like what actually happened to her, and she kind of explains like, oh, so my first husband was Duke, and like here's the story of how I met Duke and how we fell in love and then where it went wrong. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so interesting because I'm like, is the mystery of this book trying to figure out like what the heck actually happened with this woman Ruby and why she has 4 dead husbands? Like, was she involved with like killing her dead husbands, or was she like accused of being the one to kill the husbands because it's so weird that she has 4 dead husbands? I don't know, but I'm really liking the setup so far because so far in the story we've just been following from Cam and Jules' perspective as they are like, you know, going back to this small town in North Carolina and like meeting some of his family for the first time and seeing Ashby House in the flesh. I feel like this book is doing a really great job with like setting up this like North Carolina, like kind of southern gothic atmosphere vibe. I really like the way that this book is describing the house. Like, it all just feels very easy to visualize. And I also do really like Jules as a character. Like, she's had a few lines that have just like cracked me up. Like, she's really funny. I like that there seems to be like a number of mysteries being kind of like introduced into the book right now. I mean, on the like actual premise of the book, it does say, was there any truth to the persistent rumors following Ruby's disappearance as a girl? Like, why was she abducted specifically? And then like, what really happened to those 4 husbands who all died under mysterious circumstances? And why did she adopt Cam in the first place? That is a question. And it does seem too like Jules' character, she seems to be like keeping some secrets from Cam, like from her husband, about her past. So I'm just like really curious about how this is all gonna connect, but I have great feelings about this so far. Rachel Hawkins has always been very like hit or miss for me in the past, but for the most part, I have really liked a lot of her stuff. It was actually her most recent book, The Villa, that I read last year that I really didn't like that one. But for the most part, I do think her thrillers are pretty fun and really enjoyable. So I think I only have about 180 pages left. Like, this one's actually on the short side. It's only about 290 pages. So I think I might just like try to bust through the rest of this today because of how much I'm loving it. It's a little bit later in the afternoon, but I wanted to update you because I have just finished reading The Heiress. I was actually reading this while I was on a walk. I decided to go on a walk through the neighborhood and I put on my hoodie because I thought it was going to be a little bit cold out, but it was actually pretty warm today. But I finished reading this book and I have mostly good things to say about this one. I do think it's a 4-star thriller for me. Like, I had a really fun time with this. At the ending, there was a plot twist that I personally did not see coming, and I felt very stupid for not seeing that plot twist coming. Because looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That checks out. But something that was happening during this book that I thought was a little bit like, what the heck, is that there was one character that they kept referring to as like 2 different names. I literally thought they were 2 different people for like most of this book up until the ending when I was like, wait, what? And then I was like looking through my notes and I was like, oh my god, that's the same person this whole time. Like, how did I not even realize that? And that's like not a spoilery thing. That's like me being stupid and thinking that these 2 characters were 2 different people. Like, I didn't know that Libby and Elizabeth are like nicknames for the same person. Like, they could have made that a little bit more clear to me, because in some scenes they would refer to her as Elizabeth, and then in some scenes they'd refer to her as Libby, and like, it's confusing. I just hate that sometimes in thrillers when there's like a specific nickname being used for a character that I don't realize that that's their nickname. I do see that some people are criticizing this book and saying that it kind of reads more like historical fiction than like a mystery thriller, which I kind of do agree with, and I can see that. But I think because it reminded me of like Evelyn Hugo so much that I didn't mind the way that this kind of read like a historical fiction. And I think because of the way that this book is told in that like mixed media style, and because we're following from the perspective of Cam and Jules in the present day, and then we get the flashback chapters that feel like historical fiction, I don't think it bothered me as much. Like, I think this story probably would have been a lot slower for me if we were only following from the perspective in the past from, you know, Ruby's point of view. But because it was mixed with the different perspectives, I really didn't mind it, and I actually thought that it kept the story moving, it kept the story interesting. I think as far as like a mixed media book goes, I don't think this one necessarily like needed the, you know, like news articles and different things in between the chapters. Like, I don't think it added anything more to the story necessarily, but it is cool, I guess, that it's there. I do think though that this one's probably my favorite Rachel Hawkins. I mean, either this one or The Wife Upstairs, like, these are 2 that I personally had a lot of fun with. I think they were both around 4 stars for me, and then Reckless Girls would come shortly after that, and then The Villa would definitely be last. Like, I don't even own that book anymore because I did not have a fun time, but these are all a fun time for the most part. I mean, I could definitely see myself recommending this one widely, and I mean, this was definitely the most success that I had in this video. Like, I enjoyed this one a lot more than I enjoyed these 2. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy True Crime Story, but this one's kind of more like up my alley with what I tend to like in thrillers. You know, I think before doing this reading vlog, I had just assumed that I really love all books with mixed media. I mean, some of my favorites that come to mind right away include Night Film. This is definitely one of my favorite thrillers of all time that includes a lot of mixed media elements, and I just thought in this one especially it was done so well. I think Sleeping Giants, this one's more of like a sci-fi, but this one is all completely told in like mixed media. It's all just a bunch of different interviews and news articles and different files and things like that. This one is one of my favorite sci-fi books ever. I think Fantastic Land is also a bit of mixed media because this entire story is told in like an interview format style. And then I don't know if these 2 would count as mixed media, but I mean, Gone Girl I think could count as mixed media because of like the diary entries in this book, and I think, you know, Gone Girl is obviously one of my favorite books of all time. And then None of This Is True also has like the mixed media elements because of like the podcast elements of this story, and there's also like different news articles and talk about like a Netflix documentary that was made because of the situation that they're in. So like, this one does have the mixed media elements, but I would love to know if you've read any, you know, thrillers specifically that have mixed media that you think that I could enjoy, or if you have any recommendations for thrillers that have mixed media that you think are a fun time, then please do let me know in the comments. Also, let me know if you've read any of the books that I read for this video, and let me know what you think about them. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!